I still serve as vice president on the Texas AFL-CIO.
Longtime Machinist members like Danny Cook are serious about state politics.
My parents were very civic-minded and always talked with us about what doing the right thing was and doing our civic duty, and that's where my cornerstone comes from.
Cook is warning the working class about a dangerous anti-labor legislative agenda creeping through state capitals across the country.
The atmosphere in the last certainly 20 years has turned as anti-union as I've ever seen.
Cook, who's from Texas, blames corporate lobbyists who control a caste of governors and bankroll many legislators. A powerful puppet master is the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC. In short,
it's a think tank of conservative, right-wing philosophers, I guess you would say, that take a look at where they want the labor movement to be further down the road. They'll look 10, 20 years down the road, and then they will start taking steps and look at what legislation do we need to put in place and how can we incrementally take each step to where when we get to that 20-year mark, we've achieved our goal. And I believe those goals is to decimate the labor movement.
The flip side of this is unprecedented wealth at the top.
Author Gordon Lafer writes about ALEC in his book, The 1% Solution. In it, at least 250 pages chronicle corporate America's quest to craft and control state laws.
But it turns out that one of the biggest forces creating these economic problems is a concerted, very well-funded, intentional 50-state strategy.
According to Lafer, ALEC has a strong presence across the country and churns out anti-worker legislation like clockwork.
They introduce 1,000 bills a year, and the 200 a year are adopted into law. So this is a very well-funded, very well-coordinated campaign.
One of ALEC's most notorious victories occurred in the winter of 2011.
In Wisconsin, under Scott Walker, where the state essentially eliminated collective bargaining rights for all 175,000 public employees.
Since then, ALEC's legislative wrecking ball has barreled across America, mowing down middle-class principles along the way.
15 states passed laws limiting public employee collective bargaining rights. 12 states passed laws restricting the minimum wage, 4 eased limits on child labor, 19 imposed new caps on unemployment benefits.
Back in Texas, Danny Cook says he's stunned by ALEC's bold anti-union bill barrage. Just listen to this legislation waiting to be signed by the governor.
Kids under 18, it prohibits them from joining a labor union without written permission from their parents to be able to join that union. That's the most incredible thing I think I have ever heard.
According to Cook, ALEC uses a dubious and deceptive playbook to influence the political elite. It starts when a lobbyist rings the phone of a legislator, and then
they bring them into closed-door sessions. They sit down with them. They lay out all of the pieces of legislation that they want the lawmakers to introduce, and they can either introduce and support the legislation that ALEC puts before them, or their funds will be withheld. It's bought and paid for politics. I can't think of any other way to describe it.
Most state legislative seats can be bought with $50,000, $100,000. The money goes very, very far.
Once legislators are allegedly bought, they eventually meet with labor lobbyists like Danny Cook.
It's real tough. You'll get smiles and nods and sure, we understand you and we hear what you're saying, but we're not interested in what you've got to say. And it's pretty much they'll if you've got a story to tell them about how it's affected somebody, they might listen to the story, but I don't think it ever really sinks in home. It's kind of like arguing with a fence post. There's not much point in it, and you're not going to get very far.
So frustrated machinists are forced to reorganize politically as anti-labor laws flow through state capitals across the country.
It's not hopeless, but we have to go into it with clear eyes about who really is the opposition and what's really driving them.
And if we don't do something to get these people out of office that adhere to these ALEC policies, then we're going to end up losing the middle class, and we are going to be a two-class system, the rich and the very poor.